Hello and welcome to the last episode of this season of Rocky Top Rundown, your home for all things Tennessee athletics. I'm Jackson Shock alongside with Gabe Jackson, and we're here to give you the last sports update of the semester.
That's right, Jackson. Kind of hard to believe that we're on our last show already. Feels like the year just flown by, but, I guess the time flies when you're having fun. And I'd like to say I had a lot of fun this semester.
You know what, I'd have to agree. And to be fair, I've had a lot of fun. And speaking of fun, the men's basketball team will be heading down to the Bahamas to play the championship tournament there on Thursday.
The Vols are bringing their 4-0 record and 11th overall national ranking down with them for the first matchup against Virginia Cavaliers, who are still looking for their identity.
Virginia heads into the tournament undefeated at 3-0, but are still trying to find their footing as their Hall of Fame coach, Tony Bennett, retired just weeks before the season. Longtime UVA assistant coach Ron Sanchez took over on short notice and has led the Cavaliers in a win over Villanova. But the squad will be tested against the Vols. Tip-off is at 9:30 on the CBS Sports Network.
Win or lose, the Vols will play Friday. If they win, they'll play in the championship game at 9:30. If they win, if they lose, they'll play in the consolation game at 7. They will face off with one of two ranked teams, either the 13th ranked Baylor Bears, who have maybe their best roster under Coach Scott Drew, or the 22nd ranked St. John's Red Storm. And after narrowly missing the NCAA tournament a year ago, their head coach Rick Pitino has his team out for blood.
Well, we sure wish the men's team the best of luck and fun in the Bahamas vacation as well.
Indeed. And speaking of the men's team, our very own Seth Reynolds got to talk with Rick Barnes about one of the biggest key players on this year's squad.
When you look at the box score of a basketball game, you might think you could tell who the best player on the team is. But that's only part of the story. Some of the most important attributes don't show up on the stat sheet. Senior guard Jahmai Mashack exemplifies the intangibles of a great player, both on and off the court. Mashack, the Fontana, California native, was voted chair of the SEC Men's Basketball Leadership Council ahead of the 2024-25 season after having been Tennessee's representative during both his sophomore and junior seasons. That leadership ability, along with his on-court flexibility, is what makes him such a valuable player.
But again, Shaq played every position again tonight, and he just impacts the game because of not only what he's doing, but his communication with his teammates, talking to them about what's going on out there and where they need to focus on what they need to be doing.
Mashack is using his 4-year experience in the Tennessee system to help his new teammates realize their potential here on Rocky Top this season.
I think they're getting used to Tennessee basketball, and I think that's helping them elevate their game and adjust to how we play and kind of mesh that together. So I'm really looking forward to, other guys coming up and playing well. I think Igor's had a good stretch. Chaz is going to have an even better stretch, I can tell. I think Kay is going to have a really good stretch of games, along with a couple other guys.
Jahmai is also engaged with the Knoxville community. Before the game on Sunday, he was seen passing a ball with a young fan on the sideline. Over the weekend, he and his fellow teammates traveled to Bearden High School to watch the production of Mary Poppins, where the daughter of team trainer Chad Newman had the leading role. Even after the musical, he and teammate Jordan Gainey made the time to support the Lady Vols volleyball team as they played against Georgia later that night. None of this is to say that Jahmai doesn't fill up a stat sheet. Against Austin Peay on Sunday, Jahmai got to the free throw line 5 times, going 8 for 10, both career highs in attempts and makes. He is also averaging 8 points per game and leads the team with 9 steals through 4 games. Tennessee looks poised to have a dominant season, thanks in part to the leadership of Jahmai Mashack. For Rocky Top Rundown, I'm Seth Reynolds.
And one final thank you to Seth for all of his excellent reporting this semester. Now moving on over to tennis, let's look at how things are going for both the men and women's team in their respective NCAA championships. Your Tennessee Vols men's tennis team has 2 players competing in the NCAA individual championships, Shunsuke Mitsui and Alex Kotzen. Mitsui has an impressive overall record of 105-28, being 13-3 this season. He was a 2024 ITA Singles All-American and an All-SEC first-teamer. Alex Kotzen is a graduate student with a 6-2 record and was a singles finalist at the Ohio Valley Region Championship. Before coming to Tennessee, he had a career-high singles ranking of 7. The championship started last night, and while unfortunately Kotzen lost his match, Mitsui will be moving on to the round of 32 later on today.
Now let's quickly look at the women's team where the NCAA tournament is already underway. Catherine Aulia and Elza Tomase both advanced to the second round of the NCAA tournament. They are 11th and 12th Lady Vols. They are the 11th and 12th Lady Vols to advance to the round of 32 in Lady Vol history. The second round action starts today with a matchup with Duke. Now, look at our tennis teams just putting on for the school. I mean, putting us on the bigger stages. A big congrats to all that they've accomplished this season. We wish them continued success as they continue to go throughout the NCAA tournament. And speaking of tournaments in the NCAA, we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to college football. Tennessee, it just came out yesterday that Tennessee is the first team out because of the conference champions and the way the byes work, which is unfortunate considering the loss to Georgia. So we are going to try and look at some games that maybe could be relevant as we watch football. Obviously, we need the Vols to win out, but in addition, there are some other games we're going to kind of look at. The first being Indiana versus Ohio State. What do you make of that matchup?
Of course. Looking at the top, because Indiana versus Ohio State is a top 5 matchup, I'll start by saying the committee did us a little bit of a favor by not dropping us too hard. Being in the 11th spot, first team out, we only need a few things to go right. Probably the biggest and most likely one being this matchup. Indiana is undefeated right now, 10-0, and they're going to go into Ohio State looking to pick up an 11th win. I'm not sure they do it. I question the strength of schedule. I believe they're 106
They're
in
not
the
high,
nation.
I can tell you that.
Not high at all. They faced 7 of the worst Big Ten teams in their conference for their conference games. They have beaten them all pretty handily outside of Michigan, but I think any loss over 10 points to Ohio State warrants them dropping out. Maybe not out of the top 12, but at least down to the first team out, 10, 11, whatever it is, enough to get Tennessee back in the top 10 and be the first team in, Indiana first team out.
We definitely want Ohio State to win, and we want them to almost beat the brakes off of Indiana. It seems like that's the only way that they'll drop far enough to kind of make it relevant for the Volunteers and make it seem like they can get anything done. Let's move on to Ole Miss, Florida. This is kind of a trap game for Ole Miss, considering they're coming off of a bye. They might come out slow. Now, the game is in the Swamp, which is a good sign for Volunteers fans, considering they would want Ole Miss to lose. But it's a noon kickoff. I don't think that's going to really help. I don't think that's going to help Florida in any way, considering the energy won't necessarily be there as if it was, a night game or something along those lines. But definitely something to look at. I mean, this Florida team just beat LSU. They're not nearly as bad as they were, how they're not doing nearly as bad as they thought they were going to.
Our reports is DJ Lagaway will start this week. And like I said, they just beat a pretty decent LSU team that has gone toe-to-toe with most of the SEC, of course not Alabama, but most of the rest of the SEC. LSU team that beat Ole Miss earlier this season. They're going into the Swamp, not an easy place to play, especially if you ask the Vols.
Yeah, true.
I don't think it's likely that Ole Miss drops this game, only because I think that they are like us, and they understand that if they win out, that they all but ensure their playoff hopes. But I will argue, win or lose, I kind of think the Vols have a chance at the end of the season when the final rankings be made, that the Vols just straight up jump Ole Miss in the rankings. If we look at it like schedule for schedule or like records for records, Ole Miss's worst loss is to a 4-6 Kentucky at home, while Tennessee's worst loss, most people, is a 5-5 Arkansas on the road. Ole Miss's best win is against a number 10 Georgia. Tennessee's best win is a number 7 Alabama, and Alabama that will likely make the SEC championship. Who knows if they might win the SEC championship.
That would be insane.
So we have our best win is better than their best win. Our worst loss is better than their worst loss. Regardless of if they beat Florida or not, and we both win out, I question whether or not the committee will come together and just decide as things shake out to just jump Tennessee 1 over Ole Miss.
Now let's move on. This is a big one here. Texas A&M. This one really feels like it could go either way, and both outcomes seem to negatively affect the Vols, considering the fact that if Texas wins, they could drop down to a point that maybe bumps Tennessee out of the way, and if A&M wins, they could jump up to a spot that could bump out of the way. If you were to pick who you want to win this game, who are you picking, Texas or Texas A&M?
I think because Texas is ranked in the top 5, it would probably be easier for Texas to win, and honestly just win out, like win their game, win the SEC, and don't get that second loss, because there's already too much muddiness with the 2-loss SEC
That's an
teams.
easy way to put it.
So at this point, it might just be easier for them because they can just get the bye, and we just have to fight it out with Ole Miss, Georgia, Alabama. Because, of course, they pick up that second loss. I would argue Tennessee would be over them, only because Texas, like some of these other teams, their strength of schedule, I mean, their 2 biggest games they would have lost. being Georgia, who they already lost 30-15, and then they would lose to A&M hypothetically. So I think if their two biggest games, they drop them both. I think they're at least behind Tennessee, and I think Tennessee jumps up. But then if A&M picks up that big win over a number 3 Texas, then people would argue that maybe their best win is better than our best win, and maybe they should jump forward than us. I think it's easier if Texas wins, but both of them would be kind of it go either way. It's tough.
It's definitely messy. Last up, we've got Army Notre Dame. If you are a Volunteer fan right now, you do not want Notre Dame to win a game either against Army or against Southern Cal the following week. It's going to get messy. We're going to be rooting for whoever can defeat Notre Dame. But as we look at this game, we figured, we're kind of getting to the holiday season. We don't necessarily get to do a holiday episode, a Thanksgiving episode. So we'll bring some of that friendliness, that Christmas cheer, that Thanksgiving givingness. When you look at Army Notre Dame, we're going to try and role play a little bit. So I myself will be playing the interesting school of Notre Dame, who I've had choice words for in the past and through my whole life. Of course, Gabe will be playing Army because we can do that. And as we look at this, I think, why don't you go ahead and talk about kind of, if you are Army, what do you want to happen and what do you see coming in the future?
If I am Army, I am already making my push to get that G5 spot over Boise State. I would argue that there's not much difference with them already now. Obviously, Boise State has 1 loss and Army's undefeated. It's kind of like your poor man's Tennessee versus Indiana, with that last G5 spot of oh, here you have Army, who's undefeated, but who have they played? And honestly, they haven't played too much. But you also have Boise State, who haven't played anybody and are kind of hanging their hats on a 3-point loss to number 1 Oregon. Should Army go in there and beat Notre Dame, who has lost to the 7th worst team in the MAC?
Yep.
That's the best win of any G5 team, let alone they still have to win their conferences in order to get the bye. I mean, Boise State could easily drop the UNLV, who's also ranked. Army beats Tulane. Army sneaks in and gets that. I just feel like everybody kind of pencils in Boise State as that automatic G5. Every rankings, every predictions has them in there. If I'm Army, I'm not out of this thing.
That's a very good point. Now, as I said earlier, I have to defend Notre Dame, so I will try my best. Notre Dame has 1 loss, and sure, it may have been to a terrible football team who doesn't deserve to have beaten us, but that being said, Notre Dame is otherwise undefeated. They're playing well. They have a ranked win over Navy. That's an impressive win. Navy's not very good now, though. And if you look at this upcoming game, the 2 upcoming games, those are 2 challenging games. Army is a tough team to prepare for because they got that weird triple option offense they've been running since the 1800s. And they've got to deal with Southern Cal, which is a difficult game, especially going out west with the time change and playing in the Coliseum, yada, yada, yada. That's a big rivalry game. Those are 2 tough wins that could maybe make Notre Dame look a little better going forward. Still, that being said, I'm breaking out of character. Notre Dame should be in the playoff. That's enough from that.
Well, the difficulty with Notre Dame is because they're not in a conference, they can't get a bye.
Exactly.
They have to win out. There is no option for them to win a conference and still make it the way even Army has a path that they could guarantee themselves in. Notre Dame doesn't have that kind of options.
I will say that if you're a Notre Dame fan, you're not allowed to complain if you get bumped because you could have won a conference championship, but instead you like the NBC television rights. That's enough of that. I'm sorry, Notre Dame. I tend to get riled up when I have to discuss the Irish.
I tend to get riled up whenever we have to talk college football playoffs.
It's hard not to.
But, Jackson, it's been quite a season here at Rocky Top Rundown. We've had some good times, some bad times, and some in between. I'm really sad that it's over, but I'm glad that I've gotten this experience with all of our wonderful crew, from the talent to the team behind the scenes. I'm really going to miss everybody.
Gabe, yeah, I'm pretty bummed that this seems to be the end of the road for this amazing crew. I feel like if we were a real show, we would do an amazing job. And there's so many great memories that have been made this season. And this season is definitely one that I will be remembering and remembering fondly. And as we have plenty of moments that we'll remember for years to come, we decided it might be a good idea to look at maybe some of the funniest and some bloopers. So we've got a little Rocky Top Rundown blooper reel for you. Let's take a look at the clip.
Thank you for joining us for a Halloween edition of the Rocky Top Rundown, your home for all things Tennessee athletics. I'm Will Olig.
And I'm Brandon Goggins.
The Vols have been hot on the recruiting trail for the class of 2025. Here are some of the top guys in the Vols class.
I think we're killers. I think we're dogs. I think Vols by 50 every single game for the rest of the season.
What do you think about the Tennessee Volunteers?
Yeah, Vol Hoops keeps on rolling as they move now to 4-0 on the season and look to take on Virginia on Thursday in the Bahamas.
Ooh, I need a trip to the Bahamas myself. Maybe I'll try to be a walk-on to the team before Thursday so I can get a quick vacation.
Hey, man, I think you can pull it off.
Thanks, Michael. Glad to know I have your support.
I think we're going all the way. We're winning the Natty.
And I feel like any team coming in is going to be really intimidated by just looking around and seeing that fan commitment just to Checker Neyland.
Yeah. Look, I know Neyland Stadium has Wi-Fi, but that text to your ex-girlfriend asking if she's going to Cool Beans can wait. Make an impact. Be there and be loud. Make Neyland Stadium rocking on Saturday.
Do you like Carson Beck?
We're beating Bama by 30 this year. It's not even going to be close. Nico's the Heisman.
You know what they say about playing Bama at home every 2 years is that they lose every 2 years.
Percentage title odds, 69%. I think that's the perfect number.
While we're on the subject, this is the first time in program history that the Lady Vols have scored 89-plus points in the first 4 games of the season. Coach Caldwell is clearly all about buckets.
Yes, she is. And speaking of buckets, the men's team hosted Austin Peay on Sunday at 3 p.m.
Touchdown with this pass from Seals to Quincy Skinner Jr. Charles Campbell put the icing on with the field. I was supposed to look at the game. Charles Campbell put the icing on the cake. Run it back. I'm sorry.
What do y'all think about Brandon Goggins making his debut on the defensive line this Saturday?
Go Vols.
Yeah, and all we can really do now is win out and hope that other teams lose out. Indiana. You never know what can happen in this crazy college football league, so we'll just have to see. All we can do is all we can do.
Very true, Michael. Now let's swing it over.
Hello, and welcome back to Rocky Top Rundown, your home for all things Tennessee athletics. I'm Will Olig, that's Michael Ware, and we're here to give you the rundown.
That's right, Will. It was an action-packed weekend for the Vols, so we have a lot to cover. Let's jump to Vol.
I thought there was going to be another word after rundown on this week's action.
I had it until I heard them start laughing in there.
You know what they say, Jackson? Don't cry 'cause it's over. Smile because it happened. We'd like to give a special thanks to our professor, Mr. Dr. Guy Harrison, who not only put together this reel, but also put together our class and gave us all this amazing opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, a gigantic shout out to Dr. Harrison for everything he's done, from helping us, get better on camera, behind the scenes, kind of learning with us as we've learned the elements of this new control room, new studio. It's been wonderful being able to work with everybody, and it sure is a blast. Now, to wrap up, I think the only way I see fit is, when you watch SNL, you see everybody kind of coming out, and you got the big ending. What we're going to do is we're going to bring everyone out, let everyone get on camera if they haven't already, and make sure that we can say thank you and just kind of wrap this up the way we feel. So let's bring everyone out. We're going to zoom out a little bit. As you can see, we're going to bring everyone in, and this is it. I feel it feels fitting. Our wonderful producer right now, Brandon Goggins. Brandon,
yep.
Welcome to the ending here.
Hey man, I'm glad to be here, and I'm proud of you guys for.
You have to talk really loud because the mic's not.
Well, I'm proud of you guys for ending this show off on a strong note. It's been a great semester, and I appreciate you guys bearing with me as your producer, and just doing an awesome job. Thank you to everybody for doing an awesome job, and let's have a great Thanksgiving.
There we go. Big round of applause, claps for everyone. Just look at this shot. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Again, special thank you to Dr. Harrison, and Gabe, you wanna wrap this up?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Brandon. Thank you, everybody who's had a hand in this show and this season. Thank you to everybody at home tuning in on the socials and on YouTube. And from our family to yours, happy holidays. And let's wrap this up.
All right, let's do it. Well, for Jackson Shock and
Gabe Jackson,
we're going to say thank you so much for watching. And as always, go Vols!